Hey guys, it's Miranda, and I'm here to tell you my story about being 16 and pregnant. First, I want to start off with that before, like a couple months before, my mom has always had a drinking problem, but a couple months before I found out that I was pregnant, it got really bad with the guy that she was married to. And they would drink every night. They'd start fighting every night, like screaming and hitting each other, and it was just really bad. And my mom would kick me in and out of the house, and so some nights I would stay with one of my best friends, and then some nights I would stay at his house. And so it was just a really rough time a couple months before, I guess, some more big news happened. And so hey babies, I was staying at my friend's house, and my mom wanted me to come home one night, and so I was coming home, and it was after I was coming home from work, and I was gonna take the test that night. And so I told my mom I worked later than I actually did, and my best friend had bought the test, and I went to her house when I was done with work, and I took the test, and it came back positive, and I was freaking out. And I didn't really know what to do, because a couple days prior to taking the test, me and my boyfriend, which is her father, got in like this really big fight, and we were just not on good terms, and we were actually thinking about not being together. So I was really scared about that, and now I'm pregnant. And so then I texted him, and I was like, oh, like, we really need to talk, but we weren't talking like that day. So I was like, oh, we really need to talk, like, it's important. And he didn't reply for like a couple hours. Bless you, babies, bless you. And he didn't reply for a couple hours. So I was like, okay, well, he's not gonna message me, like, I don't know what to do. But I also knew that he was going on a senior camping trip, but I knew he was staying at his friend's before he went there. So I went to his friend's house, and his car was there, and I was like, okay, sweet, I'll go knock on the door. So I'm knocking on the door, and I knocked on the front and the back, and no one's answering. So now I'm like, I don't know what to do. Like, he's here, his car is here, and he's just ignoring me. And so I was pretty mad, and then I was like, okay, well, maybe he's not here. So I was actually with my friend that I took the test with, and she was like, okay, well, we can call his other friend and see if they're together or if he's out at the camping trip now. And my boyfriend didn't have his phone hooked up, so he just used it on Wi-Fi, so he wouldn't have been able to get any of my messages when he was out camping. And where they were, they didn't have much service. But we called his friend, and he was like, oh yeah, I'm not going out there till later. And I was like, okay, well, can you tell someone out there that he needs to get a hold of me, like, right now, it's really important. And he was like, yeah, sure. And I was like, okay, thank you. So I got in my car, and I went to go home, and I bawled the whole way home. And I live kind of further out from where I work and where my school is, so it's like a 30-minute drive. And I'm bawling the whole way, and then I get home, and I'm not telling my mom yet. So I go upstairs and into my room, and he still hasn't messaged me, and I was like, okay, well, I'll just wait a little bit. Bless you. I just wait a little bit, and it was like a couple hours pass, and I'm like, okay, like, he's not gonna message me, like, Cordell told him, and he's just not messaging me, like, that's great. And so I was really upset about that. And then I told my friend that I had called him, and I was like, can you see if, like, he knows to call me and stuff? So she called his friend again, and he was like, oh no, I didn't tell her. And Megan's like, okay, well, you need to tell him that it's really important, he needs to get a hold of her now. So not that long after that happened, he had called me, and it was on someone else's Facebook. And since the reception was like really poor out there, he couldn't really hear me. And I was like, oh, can you hear me? He's like, no, not really, because it kept cutting in and out. So I was like, he's like, just text me. And I was like, I don't want to and stuff. And I was like, it's like really important, can anyone see it? He's like, no. So I told him. And since he had got a ride out to the camping thing, he had to find someone there that wasn't staying the night to go to their house so he could have Wi-Fi and talk to me. But he said that he was going to continue messaging me, so then he just didn't reply for like 3 hours. And I was like, okay, like I told him, and now he doesn't care. Like, that's amazing. Like, I was so mad and I didn't know what to do. I was upset and I was freaking out. And then later he got to his friend's house, we talked about it. He's like, I'll support you, whatever you choose, you know? And I was like, okay. And eventually, we went to Hope Life Center to get like a medical test to see if I was, and it came back positive. And then in the clinic, they discussed about how we could get an abortion, adoption, or keep it. And at that point, we didn't really know what we were doing, so we just listened to them talking, give us information. And then I was 8 weeks pregnant when I went in there, and they said that I could come back in a week for an ultrasound. And so I did. And then we got to hear the heartbeat, and we got to take the ultrasound pictures home. And I still didn't know what I was doing at this point. He was supposed to be going to North Dakota State University, and that was a couple states away from where we lived. And he was supposed to be going in like a couple months, so I felt like whatever I choose, it was destroying something. Like, if I don't choose to keep her, that it'd destroy me, because I don't know if I could handle that later. And then, hey babies. And then if I chose to keep her, it would destroy him, because he's supposed to be going off to college in a whole different state, starting his whole new life. And I just felt really guilty either way. But I eventually decided that I was going to keep her, because I didn't feel like I could get an abortion and deal with that. And I also felt like if I got an abortion and then later in life had kids like I wanted, and I found like how happy I was with those kids and how much joy it'd bring me, that I just feel super guilty for not keeping her. So we kept her, and her name is Milana. Hey babies, I see your smile. So I decided that we were keeping her, and he was like, okay, I'll just support you and stuff. And I was like, okay. So I had to tell my mom, and I didn't tell anyone that I knew my decision yet. So we went out. My mom was outside in the garage letting the dogs out, and I went into the garage with her, and I told her, and she started crying, and she was super emotional, and she was like, it's your decision, but she basically wanted me to get an abortion. She's like, I'll take you to Madison, no one has to know about it, and we can get an abortion. And I was just like, okay. And then I went back into my room after I told her, and she was drinking that day. And so she started yelling like really mean things up to me, which just made the whole situation like worse. And it was horrible. And so then I was going to my dad's that weekend, and she's like, you need to tell him. And I already planned on telling him, but I wanted to do it in person. And she basically wanted me to text him and tell him, and I was like, no, I'm not doing that, because I really thought that my dad would be really mad and disappointed. And I thought my dad was gonna have like the worst reaction out of anybody. And so I was like, no, I just want to tell him in person and stuff. And so she ended up texting him before I went there, telling him that I was pregnant. And so then when I was there, he's like, oh, I think we need to talk about something. I was like, yeah. And I ended up telling him, and he was like, well, it's your decision. Like, I want you to choose. And he was really supportive through the whole thing. He was like, if you want me to contact some of the people that I know that had kids at a really young age and talk to you, like, we can do that. Like, I'll have people talk to you, like, whatever you want, and then whatever you choose. So my dad was the most supportive person that I told, and so that was really nice. That was the biggest relief ever, because I really thought I was going to be disappointed and mad, and it was just horrible. And so then he was like, you need to tell your grandma this weekend. And we're really close with my grandma. She lives just a couple houses down, so we see her like every day that we're there, and he sees her every day. He's like, oh, you need to tell your grandma, and I want you to talk to her about it. And I was like, okay. So that day we were driving out to my uncle's because they were having like a family get together thing, and he's like, you can drive her out there. So I was driving her out there, and I was like, oh, there's something I need to tell you. I was like, I'm pregnant. And then she basically, actually my grandma was the most supportive person, like hands down, but my dad and her definitely were the best people. But she basically told me that not that I'm not getting an abortion. She obviously left it for me to choose, but she doesn't believe in abortion, so she didn't ever talk about that, but she did say like, oh, it's my choice. And yeah, she cried and she said it's gonna be hard, but I can get through it and all of that. So yeah, that was really hard for me to just overall saying that I was pregnant to those people were like the hardest things. And then so he still had to tell his mom that, hey, my girlfriend's pregnant. And I guess he did it over a text. He messaged her and was like, oh, Miranda's pregnant. And she was really supportive of the whole thing. I never really got to hear if she was mad or not. Oh my gosh, she said that to him if she was. But a couple weeks later, after we had told her that, oh, we're keeping it, she talked to me because she actually had him when she was 18. So she talked to me and she was like, it's really hard, but like I'll be here for you guys through it all and all this other stuff. So she was really nice too. And so I guess the only person was my mom that was really mean to me. And then after a month of her knowing, she told me that I can't live with her anymore. So she told my dad that I'm getting kicked out and that I needed to go live with him. And I didn't want to be pregnant in school, at a new school. So I was like, okay. So I started looking at online school. And I found an online school where he lives. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to do this. And we looked into it a lot. And then basically when I had a lot of my stuff over at my dad's, she was like, oh, like, I'm not letting you do that. Like, I'm fighting you in court for custody and stuff. So I came back here, and then my boyfriend was looking at apartments because he was going to do that in North Dakota, but obviously he wasn't going anymore. So he was looking at apartments here, and I was helping him look and stuff, and then my mom told me that I can't live with her again, but I can't live with my dad. So I decided that I'm going to move in with him, and in August we got our first apartment. So I was still 16, he was 18, and we just got our first apartment together, and I moved in, and in October I turned 17, and at that time, like, we were living together, and yeah, so then my mom became really nice about it once I wasn't living with her. She was like, oh, I'm so excited, like, I'm throwing you a baby shower, like, this is gonna be so perfect, like, oh my gosh, I'm so in love, you're having a baby. And she never apologized for any of the mean names she called me or what she did, and it was really hard for me to get over that because, like, that's my mom. But she was really, really mean to me, and then she just acted like nothing happened. And to me, I was like, I at least want an apology, like, I don't know, like, but she never gave it to me, and I just felt that it would be easier to just forget about it. Like, that she was nice now, so why bring up another fight? And so I just kind of let it go. I'm still very hurt about it. Like, there was a lot of mean things said, and so hurt about it, but I find it just easier to act like it didn't happen, and so we'll be good and not fighting. And then a short couple months later, my baby was born.